how did Blackstar come up with the idea for the ISF?
Yeah, I'll do that. So that was a garden shed.
Yeah.
So that was in the extreme cold English winter. And so this is a brilliant story, and it's true as well, which the best stories are. So when we were developing our initial hand-wired products, we had an idea to invite some artists to the garden shed.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about serious artists because we had a lot of contacts from our old days, Gary Moore, those sort of.
Oh, really?
Springs to mind was somebody we didn't work with him, but those were the sort of people we talked to. We worked with a lot of great artists all the way through, but we were talking about bringing people like that. And what we were going to do is build like kind of a modular amp, which had several tone stacks. So a big part of the characteristic of a guitar preamp and the sound is the position of the mid dip and the way the tone stack works. And you know, as I alluded to earlier on, a Fender to a Marshall, and there's old plexi tone stack, new plexi tone stack, and then it's been tweaked all the way through, and it's basically the same 7 or 8 components, but just with different values. So we were going to build 5 or 6 of these chassis, and then the artist could come in and we could A/B between all of them and say, I like D, or I like A, or I like B, yeah? And then we would, basically that would be the amp we made. So the conversation in the garden shed was between me and Bruce, who was my sort of our technical director and our sort of leader in that way, was, is there any way of having an additional control that basically goes between all the different responses? And so that set Bruce off to doing some research, and what we came up with was ISF. But it was only ever supposed to be for setting the sound for artists, because our idea originally was we would turn ISF, so we did basement tone, turn ISF, and they'd say, I like it there. Then idea was to measure it and just put a standard tone stack in. But then we went, hey, this is pretty cool. Why don't we say to people, well, you don't have to have a Marshall tone stack or a Fender tone stack. You can have whatever sound you want. And that's where the sounding head. And at first we were a bit like, well, will guitarists just find it too complicated and confusing if you give them another control? But we trusted. We trusted. Well, yeah. I think, with the greatest respect and without being stereotypical, I guess you're quite into technology and stuff. Actually, a lot of guitarists, as you know, do like to keep things simple. But anyway, we tried it with a few people who come in, try it, and we probably concentrated on people who like traditional equipment. And people all loved it. And they always chose a slightly different position from each other, at which point you go, hey, this is a really valid thing. So we've got a patent on that, and it's only available on Blackstar amps.
It's a journey to your own sound.
Yeah.
And with the ISF, it's even easier to get your own sound.
Yeah.
Because no setting is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Even if it may look like it is, but it ain't.
It's really cool as well for recording, because it really helps you place the guitar in the mix. It's really good.
Cool. I think it's also important to say at Blackstar, it's one of our values is no egos and no bullshit. Okay, so it's not about us saying this is the sound. You've got to use this sound.
Sure.
You know, it's about giving musicians the tool to find their own sounds and express themselves.
But is it just some kind of EQ? Is it just another EQ dial?
No, so it's the way that it works is it kind of started with the original passive tone stack. So this is a completely passive network, and it, without going into too much into technical detail, it works in a way that the bass, middle, and treble remain interactive with each other, which means you've heard this about the traditional tone stack. That if you change the treble control, because it changes the cut-off frequency of the treble, it also changes the mid position a little bit. And you change the bass, it changes the mid, and they all interact with each other.
Okay, I see.
And the secret was to make ISF leave the tone stack still doing that. So it's not parametric, it's not any of those things. It's a passive network, and the bass, middle, and treble all interact still, but the center of the mid moves up and down. So that's the cool thing about it. the secret.